last week I had this terrible nightmare. You know those ones that feel so real that when you wake up you just feel disoriented? In my dream, something came in through my window. It didn't feel like a person, but it behaved like one. I think it put a bag over my head. I think it dragged me violently out of my house. The next thing I remember was a false awakening of sorts. I was still in the nightmare, but I was on my back on an operating table. These beings stood over me, tall, gray, humanoid. They had large dark eyes with no discernible whites or pupils. Their long, slender fingers were busily working on me. They were doing something to my face, but it felt like I'd been anesthetized. All I could feel was a pressure in my tooth and behind my eyes. In the nightmare, I blacked out again, but then woke up for real to a peaceful sunrise. I teach grade 4, so I like to get up pretty early to go over my lesson plan for the day. School starts at 9, and I usually get there at 7 a.m. I looked over the lesson plan on my classroom desk computer, and then went to the teacher's lounge to print out a few things. I slapped the fat stack of handouts down on my desk, and began perusing the news and weather, as I usually did. Very slow movement in my peripheral vision caught my eye. It was only 7:30, but out in the hall there was a kid walking around. He turned and made brief eye contact with me, then looked embarrassed and walked away a little quicker. When class finally started, I noticed that my group was unusually quiet that day. They sat up straight, paid attention, took notes. I was impressed, to say the least. It was one of those low-pressure, cloudy days, and I figured they were all probably tired. But I let them out for recess 10 minutes early because we got through the material so fast. I wasn't on recess duty, and so I sat with my feet on my desk, eating my sandwich, when I heard a familiar pitter-patter and looked out the door to the hall to see that kid from the morning. "Excuse me," I called out to him. He looked shocked to be addressed and stepped into the room timidly. "It's recess. Why aren't you outside?" I asked him, concerned that he had a lack of supervision. I'm sorry. Where am I? I don't know how I got here." There was real fear in the kid's voice, and I got up from my desk and approached him. He even seemed terrified of me, and I wondered if he had run away from an abusive household. "It's all right, just follow me." The boy followed nervously behind me as I made my way down the hall to the VP and sat him down on one of the chairs in her office. "Hey, Victoria, I've got a kid here who says he doesn't go to this school. He was wandering the halls. I've seen him since the morning. I don't know what's going on." "Hey, what's your name, buddy?" I asked the kid. "Jonathan." "Okay, last name?" "Schwartz." "No worries at all, Jonathan. We'll find your parents and give them a call." The vice principal chimed in. "All right, perfect. I'll leave him with you then." I smiled at the boy before turning to leave the room. My afternoon period started in 5 minutes, but Jonathan said something to me as I passed through the door. "Who are you talking to?" The fear was back in his voice. I wasn't sure what he meant and thought maybe the VP had been muttering something to herself, but I had no more time to lose and got back just in time to teach my afternoon class. I had terrible headaches as I lay down to sleep that night. I took a couple Tylenol, but it didn't help much, and I couldn't get to sleep until 3:30 a.m. When I did finally get to sleep, it was light and dreamless, and I woke up feeling tired. My bedroom seemed different somehow. I couldn't put my finger on any particular thing being out of place. Somehow the whole thing just seemed completely new to me. The same feeling you get when you wake up in a hotel the first night. I got to the school a little later that day, 7:30, but honestly I had more than enough time to prepare. It was another unusually quiet day for my students. The first 2 periods went by without a hitch, and in the 3rd period I found myself busily engaged in Roman history. But in the middle of my lecture, without warning, I felt like I was drowning. I hadn't had a sip of anything. I was just standing there, and yet I could feel water rushing into my lungs and my esophagus. I wanted to cough, but I couldn't. I almost thought I was having a panic attack. I couldn't believe how much liquid there was. Where had it come from? It wasn't nasal drip or anything. I wanted to keel over, but I couldn't. I was frozen upright. The liquid hit my stomach heavily. I had swallowed most of it without even realizing, and finally it was like I came out of a paralysis. I heaved over in a volley of large, whooping coughs. It felt like it was working. I could feel water leaving my lungs, but it was dry on the floor. What was this feeling? Did I have a brain tumor or something? I managed to pull myself together and apologize to my class, who again showed a shocking lack of reaction to what had just happened. My heart sank as I gazed to the back of the class. That boy from yesterday, Jonathan, was standing back there, watching me. He looked horrified. "Are you okay, mister?" he barely uttered. There were tears running down his face. The bell rang and the students cleared out of the room. I was speechless for a moment. "Yes, Jonathan, I'm fine. Why are you here, may I ask?" I was puzzled, wondering if maybe he'd actually joined the school officially. Jonathan didn't answer my question, and instead began sobbing. "Why are you here again, Jonathan?" I asked him again, growing impatient. "I don't know," he tried to get out through broken sobs. "Your parents came and got you yesterday, right?" "No, what are you talking about?" He was half screaming at me at this point, sounding confused and exasperated. I took him down to the vice principal's office again, and again left him with her to call his parents. I had nothing in period 4 and decided to go home. I didn't feel all right in the head, and I was exhausted from having had so little sleep the night before. I took a shower, but it didn't satisfy, and again as I lay down, those excruciating headaches started up. The evening and the night drolled on as I lay awake in bed, so tired and sleepless. I gave up at 3 in the morning, turned on my light, and decided to read a book. Even that was exhausting. I yawned and then rubbed my weary eyes, and as I did so, I felt something pop behind my left eye. The pain was excruciating. It felt like my eye had popped out or got ripped off of its optic nerve somehow. I held onto it. It felt like it was falling out. My eyelid wasn't able to close fully. It was trapped around some moist, gelatinous mass. Horrified, I rushed over to the bathroom to see what was going on. But even as I looked at it, I couldn't tell. It was still extremely painful to blink, but it was a feeling familiar to me, like when your contact lens slips. I found that I could touch the outside of the gelatinous mass without it hurting my eye. Was it a contact lens? I tried to remove it, and immediately I could feel that it was pulling on the far side of my eyeball. The gelatin was thicker over the cornea, and using that as a handle, I carefully pulled. I was terrified that my eye was going to come out with it, but I could actually feel a lot of pressure buildup being relieved behind my eye, and at last, my eye's gelatin coating came all the way out. I just stared at it in the palm of my hand. It retained its eye shape. It had definitely been wrapped around my entire eye, and even had a few visible fibers that must have connected to the optic nerve. Its cornea was swirling with color and light. I looked back up to the mirror and had no idea what I was seeing. Each eye was showing me something different. Just over my shoulder to the left stood Jonathan. I gasped and whirled around. "What are you doing in here?" "Take out the other one. You got one out. You need to take out the other one," Jonathan pleaded, ignoring my question. My heart was pounding as I looked back at the mirror. My left eye was the only thing in the image that looked normal. I closed my left eye, and my right eye looked normal. I was standing in my bathroom, and the boy was gone. And when I closed my right eye, I was in a strange room of mirrors, a smooth sheet of chrome that seemed to expand in every direction with no edges, like a sphere. Opening my right eye again, but examining it with my left eye, I realized that it was completely glazed over in blackness. The pressure on the right side of my head had not subsided either. I rubbed my right eye as I had my left, and I felt a familiar pop at the back of my optic nerve. I fought through the pain, knowing what to do this time, and slowly pulled off the encompassing contact lens that was feeding virtual reality directly into my brain. My bathroom was completely gone now, and I turned to stare at the boy. I was speechless, going over the last couple days in my head. None of what I had seen had been real. "Do you know where we are?" I asked Jonathan nervously. "I think we're on their ship." Whose ship? I asked, but I already knew. That nightmare I'd had 2 nights ago, that was real. I think they're aliens, Jonathan said. They made you drink something earlier. He started weeping again as he remembered it. I think they're watching you. I think they want to see how you'll react to what they gave you. Several alarm bells went off in my head as I remembered that sensation of drowning I'd had while teaching my class. A seamless door appeared in the wall as the wall appeared to peel away from itself, and 2 gray aliens stepped through. They looked just as they were described in popular culture and the conspiracy theories. One of them held out its hand, and the ocular implants they'd inserted into my head flew into it. Then, I was being pulled to the doorway by an invisible force. I screamed and thrashed as much as I could. One of the aliens lifted its wrist and sprayed a gas into my nose. And that was the last thing I remembered. I woke up in my bed to a beautiful sunrise, but I would never trust a sunrise again. I went straight to the bathroom and examined my eyes in the mirror. I kept rubbing my left eye and scratching at my left eye, trying to get that thing off my cornea. But as far as I could tell, there wasn't one there. The headaches mostly subsided as well, and I never saw Jonathan again. Either they vastly improved their virtual reality technology, or they let me go. I haven't had any random sensations of drowning either. My hypothesis is that whatever experiment they were doing on me ended the moment I realized I wasn't at home. Whatever that liquid was, maybe they wanted to see how it would make me behave under normal circumstances. Although, I guess if they're still watching me now, they would find out. Hey guys, thanks for listening to that story. I thought that was one of my best ones, so I hope you enjoyed it too. And it's nice to dip my toes into the sci-fi a little bit. Please put a like on the video, subscribe and hit the bell for more original creepypastas every Thursday. Until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.